Timidity is not the path to political success. And we're going to explore why timidity seems to be found everywhere and courage is so rare. Thank you for watching. My name is Glenn Morgan and this is We the Govern. Today we're going to be doing a video that's a little different than some of the ones I've done recently, and it's a subject that has been on my mind because I do talk to a lot of political leaders, particularly on the more conservative side of the spectrum, and it seems that timidity and cautiousness and fearfulness is really this common trait that is being used by many of them in approaching whatever political agenda that they have. Essentially, where I live in Washington State, the Republicans are certainly in the minority, and they are trying to push back, or at least the citizens that are in the field and the grassroots really want to push back. And all those people who were Democrats a few months ago and now are becoming, they aren't Democrats, but they're wondering, do I want to be a Republican maybe, or do I want to be conservative? They're coming over and they're a little disappointed in the lack of courage and the timidity that exists in the political process here. And I think it's a subject that's worth talking about because it means different things to different people. And courage is always a word that you'll see overused and abused by the media, and especially in the modern culture where you can have courage for doing pretty much nothing and they'll call it courage. We're familiar with this in the military context, of course, where great personal courage is on display all the time, and that's an appropriate use of the term, but the way the common culture tends to use it, it tends to be overused. And the way I'm using it here is I want to talk about the political process and most significantly politicians. Essentially, we are electing these people and these guys and gals, we're putting them in office and we're hoping that they're going to lead us and do the right thing and stand up for the right thing when it comes their way. And we always make jokes about the political process and the corruption that exists there. And not that that's a funny thing, but it's it's been part of human nature that we've seen for many, many times, for years and years, since the idea of the political process has been around. And the idea of having courage is not new. I mean, people always have used this. John F. Kennedy, most famously when he wrote his book, Profiling Courage, and of course that was used as part of his campaign platform when he ran. You see numerous books that have been put out over the years emphasizing courage in the political process and what that meant to stand up for something or to push a cause that maybe it wasn't popular, or invited a lot of attacks on them at the time. And even, this is a quote I kind of liked, where when Arnold Schwarzenegger was governor of California, and he said, political courage is not political suicide. And I only say that's kind of a funny quote because the truth is, I believe most modern politicians believe that political courage is political suicide. The last thing they want to do is be out in front on an issue until they believe it's totally, totally safe. And that's why when you see many of these people who have been elected to office, they suddenly collapse when the wind starts to blow on them and they fall apart. And it's not even that they bend with the wind, they just fall apart when the wind blows. That is a problem. I don't think that's effective leadership. And you get away with that when the times are fairly normal and we're living in a world in which it's fairly predictable what's happening, but that's not today. And so the last thing people want is to see their politicians or their political leaders hiding in the hole out in the field, waiting to peek their head up when they think everything's safe. That is not what people want. And Franklin Roosevelt, FDR said, does anyone think that victory is possible without facing danger? And it's a great question and a good quote, and it really does apply to the political process. How is it that you think you can have political success, that you can take back the House or the Senate or lead when you're afraid to come out of your foxhole and confront the bad things that are going on out there all the time? You actually can't win a political fight if you're going to hide behind a rock or be worried about whether you have slings and arrows thrown at you. Now, of course, it's easy for me to say this, right? And of course, I've been a person that people oftentimes say, why don't you be more brave? And I'm brave in a different way, I guess, or I try to be. And you get out and you speak truth to power and you question authority. But it's very easy for people and to point at somebody else and say, why don't they be brave? Because after all, that person who's pointing at them and telling them to be brave, well, they're not going to be the person who is hounded by a pack of hyenas. And no matter how brave they are, you can be chased down and put in pretty tough situations. And then all those people who were pointing the finger at you, they're nowhere to be found. Now, that's a lesson that anybody who cares and wants their political leaders to be brave should think about for themselves. Are we brave as well? Are we willing to stand up? Are we willing to do the right thing? And I think that particularly in this world of just chaos right now and a complete lack of faith and a justified and understandable collapse in faith in political leadership in America and at our state level. I live in Washington State. There's Inslee is demonstrating how not to be a good governor. And we've had a lot of these problems now that have been just simply accelerating and becoming more significant and more dramatic all the time. And yet, wrong is still wrong, even if everybody is doing it. And when bad things are happening, politicians who have been elected, who are essentially leaders, we expect them to stand up and speak truth to power or question authority, particularly if you're not in control. And if you want and expect to get back into some kind of leadership position, you're going to have to take a position and you're going to have to stand up for something. It doesn't mean people think you're going to be perfect. It just means that we need people who are actually willing to stand up and do the right thing. One of my favorite quotes when it comes to courage was actually by C.S. Lewis. And C.S. Lewis said that courage is not simply one of the virtues, it's the form of every virtue at the testing point. And he's very right. I mean, his books oftentimes reflect that approach to what courage really is. It's one thing to say you have courage, but will you really have it when the chips are down and when really tough decisions and times face you? That's an important question. It's one that everybody needs to answer. So, if I had any message at all, and people oftentimes ask me, what would I tell the political leadership, maybe the Republican opposition, or maybe those who are trying to run for office and try to get control of their school district, or get control of their county commission, or the city council that's entirely out of control. And it is that timidity is not going to be the path to political success. Whether you win your race or not, it isn't going to happen because you are timid. It's not going to happen because you are going to hide in the shadows and come out when it's safe. And that applies to those of us who are activists, those of us who are concerned, those of us who want to expose the truth, and those of us who want to do the right thing. We have to be brave too. We can't just expect our political leaders to do it alone and not back them up. And timidity is not going to be the path to success. There's a smart set of people who are on the inside who think that this somehow is the path to political future, and it isn't. And it's the message that I think as activists and as those of us who are concerned about what we see going on around us, I think it's a message that we need to repeat and send to them. So if you want to learn more about what I'm writing about or what We the Government's about, just go to wethegovernment.com. It's linked below. You can also subscribe and share this video with others. Subscribe to the channel. You can subscribe to my website. And remember, the one thing I say to everybody at the end of all my videos, the future belongs to those who show up.